The Quest for El Dorado. This is a game published by Ravensburger that combines two interesting ideas. One, it is a race game, and the other one, it is a deck building game. Basically, like in traditional deck building games, you will start with a small, weak deck, and you will use it to trigger actions, and in particular here you will use those actions to acquire more cards, and also to move on the board, to pay for the cost of moving on the board, because ultimately you're looking for El Dorado. The board is a modular board. It is made of these tiles here, which are double-sided, so you have a lot of variety there. You can mix and match them any way you want. This is an example, a sample setup, and I'm not even using them all, so huge variety there. You will have a starting tile and you will place your explorers there. Your job is to run through the board and to reach the final tile representing El Dorado. As you can see, there are symbols on the hexes that are on the board, and they represent the cost that you have to pay. So for example, to enter this hex here, I need to pay one machete, and here another machete, and here a machete, and here a paddle, and here I need to discard a card out of the game, 3 machete, discard a card from hand, and so on and so forth. There's also an interesting catch-up mechanism, rubber banding, that is when you pay the cost of one of these things, these blockades, well, only the first player that gets there pays the cost to move across it. Say suppose yellow is there, pays that cost, we remove that one, so basically then the track is literally and physically shorter for all players but the first one. However, these are not only meant to slow down the players, because at the end of the game, if players reach El Dorado at the same time, these barricades act as tiebreaker. Whoever has the most wins the game. You can also have tiles representing special advantages and special things that happen, and you can put them in piles face down so you don't know what they are, on the mountains that have this like little cave with a little light coming out. And these mountains are not passable, so you would be able to collect one of those tiles if you choose to use them. They're optional when you move adjacent to them. But how do you move on the board? That's a great question. Again, you will play cards from your hand. You will play a hand of cards and say, for example, I have the Explorer, and then I can play it, and then I can move here, and then I have another Explorer, and I move here, and I have the Sailor, and I move here, and I discard this card forever out of the game so I can move there. It's that simple. Importance. You can see this is your starting deck. You start with cards that have low value. What is important is that you can pay less than the value of a card to enter an area. Say, for example, if you have a card with a 3, well, you can enter a 3, of course, or you can use it to move 1, 2, 3 machetes. What you cannot do is to combine smaller cards. So, for example, if I have 2 Explorers that are worth 1 and 1, I will not be able to put them together. So you can diffract the value of a card, but never put together multiple cards. This is important because it gives an incentive to acquire more powerful cards. This amount that you see here on top is how much money cards generate. So some cards may generate movement, some money, some advanced cards, both, plus other game effects. Say in my hand I have these cards, then I decide that I want to buy something with them, then I have a buying power of up to 3. And the cost of the cards that can be acquired is at the bottom. So the amount of coins that you see there at the bottom. At the beginning of the game, only these cards here are available. They're on the side of this divider. And suppose the players have bought a lot of these. Now there is an empty slot. When there is an empty slot, anybody who wants to buy anything can choose then one of the cards up there, which are unavailable at the beginning of the game. The player then moves the corresponding deck here and then buys the card. And this is how you release those cards. But they will only be 6 that are available, 6 types that are available at any given time. As you can see, you have cards that do different things, very, very fast movement with a lot of different options here, but this is a one-time card, otherwise it would be totally overpowered. You discard it out of the game after you use it, and it costs 4. Other cards will give you other types of effects, and you simply read the text and implement it, and you do what they say, and these are just 2 examples. So this is the idea: play your cards to move in or to acquire new cards. Discard some cards at the end of the game, refill at the end of the round, refill your hand, and then the player takes the next turn, and you continue like this until a player made it all the way to El Dorado, and the player wins the game. The Quest for El Dorado is a game that successfully combines 2 elements that you don't see very often together: the deck building element and a racing architecture of the design. Extraordinary Adventures Pirates, that I played and reviewed recently, that made me want to play this game precisely because it doesn't combine the 2 things nearly as well. The Quest for El Dorado does. It is a game that is perfectly fine for a casual audience. You can play with young players, no problem whatsoever, as long as they don't even, I think you're a player that is still learning to read, that young, they can distinguish a machete from a coin. You just tell them what the effects are, but most of the effects go through icons. You can have really young players play it, or you can play with adults at game nights, and it's still rewarding, it is still satisfying. It is a true family game in that sense that it covers such a large range of different ages, and everybody can actually play the game. Again, it's not a game that, in order for you to play with the kids, you have to be bored there and wait until the game is over. You can actually play it, and maybe the kids will win, honestly, and that's fun. That's fun because the flow of the game is fun. And I like the fact that it's a deck building game in which you have always something to do. You don't find yourself often with a dead hand and there's nothing you can do, where you're basically skipping this turn and then you'll do something else next turn, which happens in other games, in other deck building games. Also, something that I like here is that you have deck building games in which in the late phase of the game people have created synergies, and so their deck is just boom, boom, creating cards after card. This gives me an extra card, which I use to get an extra card, which I use to buy a card, which gives me an extra action. And you're just sitting there. That's happened in the early editions of Dominion, and they're just games in which that is the case. If you're the player doing that, is great. To a point. I actually, even if when I'm the player doing it, I feel a bit guilty if other players are just sitting there and they don't have that synergy. Not with the Quest for El Dorado. If I had the greatest synergy, all it means is that I advance 4 spaces. Boop, 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 boop. Instead of maybe 2. Boop, boop. So as you can see, when I'm doing my boop, 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 it's not that I'm forcing you to sit through long procedures and discards and other crazy stuff. You can agree synergies that can pay off, but they do not slow down the pace of the game. They do not create downtime, and that to me is remarkable. And it is a true race game in the sense that it's not an abstract parallel race to see who has the most points, but you're really interacting with the terrain, you're really negotiating those styles, you're really trying to exploit bottlenecks. And because of that, he can get a little bit mean from time to time. You can still go, well, that was the only good play that I had, and it just so happened that I'm completely blocking your movement. They won't believe it that you didn't do it on purpose. Probably you did do it on purpose, and you should, because the game allows you to do so. But at the same time, it doesn't get to the point that it feels too much backstabbing and it gets too confrontational. I played it with kids, and with kids that, especially my 7-year-old, from time to time she does rage quit. She does not hand the game stress all that well, and yet from time to time we just cut across and prevent her from doing all that she wanted to do, and she was still able to take it. Maybe it's the colorful components, maybe it's the fact that you're always doing something. The pace of the game is so good that if you are blocked now, you'll be able to do something else. In fact, if I'm blocked now, well, instead of moving, maybe I'll buy some stuff, and maybe I'll do something else. Maybe I'll plan for other movements. You always feel engaged, and to me, that is remarkable. This is a game with an impeccable pace, with very interesting range of decisions, immense variety because you can create maps that are more or less challenging depending on your audience or how you feel to play, you want to play that day. The Quest for El Dorado, truly fun game, absolutely fun, enjoyable. It's gonna be a staple in my game night because I just can see it how, I don't know, late in the evening is the third or fourth game we want to play. One more game. This one is simple, quick to set up, very intuitive. Players of the building games more or less already know how to play it, even if they never played, and most importantly, it is a lot of fun.